Hey, gang, we're back here for another lesson on the pillars of faith. Last time we talked, we had gone over two of the five pillars. Remember, these are five things that every Muslim must do, whether that's daily or weekly or monthly or yearly or in their lifetime. These are things that every Muslim is responsible for doing. So we got over one, which is the Shahada, which is a statement of faith. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. And we gone over the second one, which is Salah, which is praying 5 times a day facing Mecca. And Mecca, if you recall, is kind of directly behind me to the east, and they would pray in that direction morning, um, noon, afternoon, evening, and night. Okay? We have three more to go. One of them is easy, the other two seem to be a little more challenging. So, um, Shahada, Salah, we're on pillar number four, which is oh, these are different in a different order. We're going to go actually to this one right here, which is Zakat. Okay, so let's present this here and get me out of the way. Shrink. There we go. Okay, number four, and this, or three, excuse me, and this is going into your notebook, is zakat. Okay, which means giving alms to the poor. Now, alms giving is not something that's new. A lot of religions spend time giving money to the poor, and the word alms is not unusual either. So I did highlight it in my notebook. I'm going to bold it and make it a color so that I understand that that means money. But this is not unusual. A lot of religions specifically built into them giving money or spending money, somehow helping the poor, which, seems like a good idea. So we have Shahada, we have Salah, we have Zakat, and we have the fourth one, which to me is probably the most challenging, but we'll see what you think. The fourth one is Swam. Okay, number four, SAWM, which means fasting during the month of Ramadan. Now, couple of things. One, Ramadan is a month in the Islamic calendar. Very important. Um, you would fast approximately for 30 days. Now, we had talked about fast before. A fast is something that you do for religious purposes. You can't just wake up one day and go, "Oh, I want to fast to get thinner." Okay, that's called something else. A fast is specifically designed for religious purposes. And what you do is this: instead of spending time eating your meal or preparing your meal or those kinds of things, you would spend that time in prayer and worship to God. So it's designed specifically for that. Now, we over time have kind of messed with the word a little bit. Like you have to fast before you get blood work or something like that. And that, of course, just means to not eat. But in this case, it's specifically for religious purposes. Ramadan lasts for 30 days. It's usually in the fall at some point. And during that time, from sun up to sunset, Muslims are not permitted to eat. Now, after sunset, they're permitted a small, meager meal that they should be eating with their family or friends. But generally speaking, it's not like a big old party. Now, a lot of places do have a big old party to break their fast, but generally, it's time that you can have a small meal and then you go to bed and then you get up the next day and you fast until your until sundown, and then of course you can have something to eat. So we have Shahada, which is the prayer to God, the declaration of faith. We have Salah, which is next, and it means to pray 5 times a day facing Mecca. We have Zakat, which means giving money to the poor, and we have Swam, which means fasting during the month of Ramadan. In fact, if you looked it up right now, we can tell you exactly when it is. Ramadan 2020. And oh, oddly enough, this year Ramadan was way early. Ramadan in the United States in 2020 was from April 23rd to May 23rd. Um, I wonder what it is for 2021. Oh, also in the spring. So it's not unusual that it switches around, but you can see definitely in the spring, and that would be a whole month, and that's the time that you fast. Pretty general. Um, Now, I will tell you that there are a couple of reasons why you wouldn't fast. Number one, for health concerns. Like if you have a specific health need that in which you need to like take a medicine regularly and you have to take it with food, that would be example. If you're a diabetic and you need to make sure that you keep your blood insulin level high enough, that would be another reason. If you are a very small child, if you are pregnant or you're an elderly person, all reasons that you might not want to participate in the fast. I would say that generally around eighth grade, people try to practice fasting. So up until that point, not so good at it. Around eighth grade, they actually try and attempt to do their fast and see how that works out for them. We've had kids try and do their Muslim Islamic fast swam before, and then they find out it's really challenging because all of their friends are eating lunch and they're not eating lunch. So they, sometimes make it a couple of days before they kind of give in. But it's a practice and it's something that you try to get better at. If you were living in a Muslim country, this would be much, much easier because everything would be shut down during those days. Okay? Pillar number 5, and probably to me, one of the most interesting. Um, Maybe not the hardest, well, maybe, is Hajj. Hajj. And let's look at this video, short video here about Hajj.
Mecca sits in the western mountains of Saudi Arabia, in a sanctuary roughly 100 miles square. Since long before Islam, it has been considered sacred territory, where no one could hunt, cut trees, or fight. At the heart of the city is a great mosque called Al Masjid Al Haram, and at its center is the Kaaba. Muslims don't worship the Kaaba, they worship what it represents, the one God. Hajj takes place in and around Mecca. It is a series of rituals performed between the 8th and 13th days of the last month of the Islamic calendar. While circling the Kaaba is the final act of the pilgrimage, it is also the top priority for pilgrims when they first get to Mecca. For Muslims who have prayed in this direction every day for years, seeing the Kaaba for the first time is almost overwhelming. Now to the valley of Mina, where the Prophet Muhammad stopped and rested on his Hajj nearly 14 centuries ago. This is a town that rose from virtually zero to 2 million people overnight. At dawn on the next day, the camps stir with anticipation for the greatest day of the Hajj. 2 million people are off to the plain of Arafat. Some 50,000 vehicles clog the roads. Arafat is 8 miles east of Mina. It's the place, Muslims believe, Adam and Eve found each other after exile from Eden. And it's seen by many as a rehearsal for the day of judgment.
It's Judgment Day. All the trappings of life sort of fall away, and you see these people in front of God Almighty. And that's all there is.
A strange quiet descends in the afternoon as people turn inward. It's called the Standing at Arafat. Only when the sun has set can pilgrims leave Arafat. Nearly 2 million people stand poised to move as soon as the sun dips below the horizon. The pilgrims move back toward the white tents of Mina, where tomorrow they will engage in a symbolic battle with the devil. Here, Muslims believe, God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son, but the devil challenged him not to. One story says Abraham pelted the devil with stones 3 separate times, chasing him away. 3 stone pillars mark the spots where Abraham stood his ground. At a place called Muzdalifa, on the way to the pillars, pilgrims pick up pebbles to stone Satan themselves. The ritual is called the Jumrat. With all other rites complete, pilgrims return to Mecca for a grand parting visit. They have all earned an honorific title: Haji for the men, Hajja for the women. Pilgrims arrive alone in a current of a million strangers and go home riding a spiritual wave of rebirth.
So you can see that this process of Hajj is very, very specific. Every Muslim must go on the pilgrimage at some point, once in their lifetime, if they're able. And a lot of people have started to be able to do that more and more as transportation has become easier and easier. The city of Mecca is actually a closed city. You can't get into it unless you are a practicing Muslim. You have to actually have a message from your imam or your religious leader that says that you can go. And it is fascinating to me the amount of people that travel every year for Hajj. This year, Hajj was celebrated in July. So you can imagine kind of like the heat of that process, but it's very, very interesting to see what happens with this process.
Mecca sits in the western mountains of South.
Let's see if we can go on from here. So the process of Hajj, as you can see, um, takes several days, and it's a pattern, it's a ritual in which everyone must do the same thing. So they arrive in Makat, they arrive in the plane. Once they get there, they must remove their clothing from the west. Um, they need to make sure that they are clean, do all of those kinds of things. And then they move to Mecca, where they start to look at uh, the actual Kaaba itself. Okay, so number 5, pilgrimage to Mecca, is called the Hajj. If we look at the way that people actually celebrate the Hajj, this might be a little bit easier to understand. So let's look at this video.
3 in the morning on Mecca. And this is about as quiet as it gets. Hajj is the largest annual pilgrimage in the world. It happens in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, and for Muslims, it's a requirement that you have to do once in your lifetime. The Saudi government estimated that last year there were over 3 million pilgrims who attended, but the unofficial number is much higher. My parents are originally from Lahore, Pakistan. They're practicing Muslims, and
Last year, they decided it was time for them to perform Hajj. So I went with them to help them with their journey, but also for myself as well. It was the first time for all of us. And I didn't go thinking I was going to make a VBS documentary. I just took the smallest Handycam we had in the office and literally shot from the hip. You're not allowed to shoot in most of the holy places, so this is the footage I managed to sneak out. We flew on Saudi Arabian Airlines. It was about a 10-hour flight from JFK to Medina, where we spent 6 days getting mentally prepared for the Hajj that we were about to embark on. In pre-Islamic times, Medina was a place where the travelers who were crossing the desert in camel caravans would come to rest. It was kind of like a desert oasis. In modern times, it's kind of the same thing, but there are less camels and more shopping malls and hotels. There's also a stunning mosque there called the Prophet's Masjid, which is the second holiest site in Islam. When you're there, you basically just go to the mosque 5 times a day for 6 days straight to get into a meditative state. The mosque is huge. It holds almost 700,000 people. And when we were there for the Friday prayer, it was pretty much full. Flying to Mecca from Medina was really interesting. Before we went to the airport, we cleansed ourselves in a very specific way. And then we had to put on a white, seamless garment made out of terry cloth that all the pilgrims have to wear. And it's a renunciation of the life that you come from, and it's supposed to put everyone on the same level. There's no upper class or lower class. Everyone's the same. It's just you in the sheep, and that's it. This is called getting into a state of Iran. Besides the clothes, there are a lot of other rules. You can't smoke, you can't have sex, you can't shave, you can't cut your nails, and there are a bunch of other no-nos. So we got on this charter just for the pilgrims, and 10 minutes after the plane took off from Medina, the captain announced that we'd flown over a designation point and we were in the zone near Mecca, and we all had to start reciting prayer. And our group guide got onto the loudspeaker system of the airplane and started yelling the prayer. Everyone started chanting it. And I had a moment where I looked around and saw all of these men and women in their white robes, and men with their beards. I just thought if someone from the West could see us right now, they would think we were a bunch of fanatical jihadis on some kind of an insane mission. When in reality, it was just pilgrims excited to go on this spiritual quest. I think
What he had to say there is really important. It goes back to the fact that we have this opinion or this idea that people who look a certain way, we have this stereotype that they're a terrorist, and all they're doing is they're going and they're doing their requirement. They're going on their Hajj so that they can be part of this process. Now, the actual Hajj itself takes quite a bit of time. Um, and so I want to show you a little bit about what Mecca looks like today to help you understand how big we're talking about. So, this is the Kaaba right here. Inside the Kaaba are the holy books of Islam and some important things that belong to Muhammad, but not a lot of stuff. It is open. The priest can get into it. There's a door at the top that they can get in, and they do that annually. But most of the time, it's closed. And so what happens is when you go on Hajj, you have to walk around counterclockwise around the Kaaba 7 times. And it kind of becomes this sea of humanity. It's really quite crazy. This would be the a picture of the mosque, the church, around the Kaaba in 1887. And then you can see what it looks like currently. This was September of 2015, so this is 5 years ago. Now, you also heard the man say that you can't take pictures of holy places. So the fact that we have these photos is unique. Now that we have the internet, we can access a little bit more information about the Hajj. But it's very personal, and so people don't want to really talk about it too much. This would be the city of Mecca, okay, that same 1887, and this is what it looks like now. It's amazing. And you can see right here where my cursor is, that section right there, that's where the Kaaba is. All of the rest of this is the church that they have created around this holy site right here. Now, if you notice, these buildings that are located here around the center or the outside of the mosque, these are all hotels where people stay when they go on this pilgrimage. Now, the thing is that people, there's quite a bit of controversy about the fact that it has become as touristy as it has become, because this is a right, something that Muslims must do. And so people are a little confused about why people are allowed to stay in kind of these luxury hotels and those kinds of things. Um, I don't have an answer to that. It's something that people who are practicing Muslims, they have to decide on their own. But you can see that it has become this kind of like insane process. This is the tent city of Mina. This you have to stay here one evening on your way through the Hajj, and this is what it looks like now. A lot of these changes had to be made because there were so many pilgrims coming and there was a lot of danger involved. People were kind of getting squished and crushed. Buses were going everywhere, and so they had to kind of rebuild the infrastructure of Mecca so that people would be safe. And so it's quite interesting to know what's really happening with this fifth pillar of faith. If we go back here, you can see that it takes them through this process, um, and they go to the plain of Arafat, they pray, and then they return and go home. It takes generally about 7 days to get through the whole thing. Okay. Couple other interesting points about Islam, other Islamic beliefs that you need to kind of include into your notebook. The first one is these are kind of like other rules of Islam. So I'm going to put that in here. Other rules of Islam. And my first one is going to be no pork. This is similar to Jews. It says in the Bible that you are not allowed to eat the flesh of a cloven hoofed animal, and pig fits into that. So both Jews and Muslims believe the same thing here. It also says that we can have no alcohol. Um, Muslims believe that alcohol makes one not reverent and could have the possibility of making you not follow the teachings of God. So they have eliminated alcohol from their lives. In fact, so much that if you go to a city, as a Muslim city, there aren't any bars. No gambling. Also, spending our money unwisely. Okay. Um, no pictures. Now, this doesn't mean you can't take pictures. It means this: you can't have pictures of Mohammed or God in your temples. And finally, a lot of women are asked, or they prefer to wear a hijab, which is a headscarf, and it promotes modesty. Among women. And so modesty is going to be really important here. So I gave you, I thought that this was kind of interesting. Hijab, that's this headscarf. You might have seen women, maybe you went to Erie and you were shopping at the mall or something, and you saw someone with this scarf. This would be the hijab. Okay. Now, these headscarves here and even the chador, I would say, are all examples of headscarves that women choose to wear based on the fact that they want to be modest before God. These two options are less so. In countries that require specifically the burqa, this is a very oppressive kind of version of Islam. In fact, as we're reading The Breadwinner, the characters, the women in that novel, are required to wear this particular outfit. And you can see it's very hard to see through this mesh. It's very difficult to kind of wear. It's cumbersome, and that is they're asked to do that out of oppression, not necessarily about modesty before God. Okay. Um, I would go ahead and find a picture of maybe someone wearing a hijab or someone wearing a burqa and put those in your notebook. That kind of wraps up our conversation about the different ways that Muslims worship and how they worship. And we're going to talk next about what most Muslims, Arab expansion, how is it growing, where is it growing, and how is it affecting those around us. Okay, I hope that you have a good day. And as always, if you have questions or concerns, go ahead and email Mr. Herman or myself so that we can get back to you and with some clarification. Bye bye.